Okay, in this video we're going to do problems 12 and 13, and we're doing law of sines, law of cosines, and area using law of sines. Okay, so let's look at this first problem. Okay, they say find the area. Now, what you want to definitely do is do this first. Sketch out what they're giving you. So this is triangle A, B, C. That means this is little side B, this is little side A, and this is little side C. They gave you angle A, which is 125. Then they told you little side B is 6, and little side C is 15. Okay, this is the perfect setup. In order to use the equation that has sine in it to find the area of a not right triangle, you need to have the setup where you have the two sides and the included angle. So we have this setup. So let's see what formula we're going to use. So I'm going to just pull this up. Look at the formula sheet. Okay, this is what we want to use, the area of the triangle. So we want to use that. And so let's go back into our assignment, and let's see, can I paste that there? I cannot. So let me just write that down. So what I want to use is area equals 1/2 AB sine C. Now, don't follow these letters. This is just the concept that you have to have a sandwich in order to use this formula for area. So in our situation, the sides on either side of the angle are 15 and 6, and the included angle will have us find the sine of 125. That's what goes in your graphing calculator. Now, make sure your mode is in degrees before you do anything crazy, okay? So in your calculator, you should be putting 0.5, because that's 1/2, times 15 times 6 times the sine of 125. That should go in your calculator as one entry, one line. Don't do it in parts. That is not the way you handle this. And you should be getting 36.9 for your answer. So usually we say round to the nearest tenth. We didn't say it here, but we're going to round to the nearest tenth, and that's what you get. Okay? So let's go on to the next equation, or the next problem, because that's going to be more of law of sines and law of cosines. Okay, so looking at problem 13a, what I see is that they gave me side, side, side. If they give me side, 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 I have to use law of cosines. And I have to use the version that's going to let me find my angles. And I'm going to try to find the biggest angle first. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw this triangle. So here in my triangle, I'm going to label things because it's helpful for me to use my formula with things labeled. Okay, so let's just say, I'm going to say that this is 7, this is 12, this is 13. Okay, so now let's go into my formula sheet so I can show you what we're going to do. So in your formula, here are your law of cosines. In order to do angles, you're going to use this version right here. Okay, these are what you're going to use. Now, since I can't cut and paste to this other document, I will write out what I'm going to use so that you can match it, but you should be looking at your equation sheet. Okay, so let me come back in here. Okay, when you use law of cosines, find the biggest angle first. Okay, what's going to be the biggest angle? It's going to be angle B right here. And how come? Because it's across from the biggest side. So that's important for you to know. So I'm going to write out this for you. The cosine of angle B is going to be a squared, and this matches my triangle. A squared plus B squared, plus C squared, go back, plus C squared minus B squared over 2AC. Okay, that's your formula. Now, let's put this in the way I want you to put it in your calculator. Okay, angle B is going to equal the cosine to the -1 of, and now let's pull the values. A is 12 squared. Little c is 7 squared. Little b is 13 squared. Over 2 times little a is 12, and little c is 7. This goes in your calculator in one and only one step. So hopefully you have a TI-84. It's easier. And I'm going to do it as if I'm going to tell you what the steps are for a TI-84. Okay, I'm going to say second cosine. That gives me the inverse, which is what I want. Then I'm going to say alpha y equals and hit 1 to get my fraction bar. So then I'm going to put in the numerator 12 squared and then plus 7 squared and then minus 13 squared. Now move to your denominator. I have 2 times 12 times 7. Okay, move up, close your parentheses on that fraction, and hit enter. That will give you your angle, and rounded to the nearest tenth, you should have gotten 81.8 degrees. Okay, that's angle B, 81.8 degrees. Okay, now if you want, you can now switch over to law of sines because we've solved for the biggest angle using law of cosine, so that's good. So now I'm going to solve for the smallest angle. So I'm going to try to solve for angle C, but I'm now going to use law of sines. So I'm going to switch over. Let me show you where law of sines is on your formula sheet. Okay, so down here, right here, are going to be the law of sines. So I'm going to write it down, but I want you to know where it is on your formula sheet so that on the day of the exam, you know what you're doing. Let me go back to my other sheet. Okay, so law of sines. So I'm going to set up my ratio. So I'm going to say sine of b over little b equals, I'm going to find c first. Sine of c over 7. Okay, so let's write this in. So sine of b, that's going to be sine of 81.8 over 13 equals sine of c over 7. Do nothing with your calculator yet. I'm going to now set up my equation. So 7 times the sine of 81.8 equals 13 times the sine of c. Divide both sides by 13, and that's going to get you the sine of c. I don't want the sine of c. I want c. So I'm going to make this a little smaller. Oops, that didn't really work. Okay, so I'm just going to continue over here. So let me continue over here. In my calculator, I'm going to say angle C equals sine to the -1 of the following fraction. 7 times the sine of 81.8 over 13. That goes in my calculator in one step. So I say second sine, and then I say alpha y equals nd, and in the numerator I say 7 times the sine of 81.8, and then in my denominator I have the number 13. Come out, close those little parentheses, and hit enter, and you should be getting that angle C equals 32.2 degrees. Okay, so now at this point, I have angle B and I have angle C. I know in every triangle that's ever been created, there's 180 degrees. So say 180 minus 32.2 minus 81.8, and you'll get angle A, which we had not yet solved for. So 180 minus 32.2 minus 81.8, and that's going to equal exactly 66 degrees. So this is angle A. Those are my three angles. Okay, I initially solved for a missing angle using law of cosines. I solved for the biggest angle, then I switched to law of sines. I solved for the smallest angle. Then I just did my subtraction from 180 of the two angles I found to find the third missing angle. And now I have all of my angles. So you should be able to do that as well. But remember what I said about calculator entry. It's really critically important that you do not do premature rounding, because that will really mess up your results. You'll not get the angles that you need to get. Okay, so we want to do one more problem here, and that's B. So let's look at that. So we're going to do the same thing in terms of first thinking about what they gave us. This is RST. So I'm just going to write my triangle like this, RST. And they told me that the angle R is 75, the angle S is 45, and little t, which is across from big T, has a length of 3. Okay, so I'm missing angle T. Okay, you can get angle T by saying 180 minus 45 minus 75, and you should be getting 60 degrees. So angle T is 60 degrees. Okay? Now you have a pair between the 60 degrees and the given side of 3. So what I'm noticing is I have two angles and a side. So I was given angle, side, angle. If you're given angle, side, angle, you are going to use law of sines. So in my formula sheet, this is what I'm going to be using for the whole problem, law of sines. Okay, let's go back. So I want to find my missing sides. I have two of them. I've already solved for my missing angle. So set up your sine relationship. So the sine of 60 degrees over 3 equals the sine of 75 over little r. Okay, so little r is right here. So don't grab your calculator yet. And still wait one more sec. Okay, in my calculator, I'm going to put this fraction. So I'm putting one thing in. So I'm going to say alpha y equals, pick the fraction bar, I'm going to say 3 times the sine of 75 divided by the sine of 60. And I'm going to get, for my missing side, 3.3. So I'm getting that little r is 3.3. I now need to do little s, because that's right here. So use the same setup. So sine of 60 over 3 equals the sine of 45 over s. Do your cross products. So s, make sure it looks like an s, times the sine of 60 equals sine 45 times 3. So s is going to be sine 45 times 3. Remember to close your parentheses by the sine, and then over the sine of 60. So if you just entered this other problem, I'm going to just say second entry. That comes back up again, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the 75 that was in the numerator, the sine of 75, and make it the sine of 45. Or you can go ahead and enter the whole thing again if you're not on that same problem. Okay, that S gives me a value of 2.4, and that finishes this problem and this video.